Well, the SEC title game taking down the Mississippi State Bulldogs by the score of 73-66. We got to talk about this one and the excitement of the Tigers returning for a potential SEC championship. And that will be very exciting to talk about. Let's talk about the stories, the score, and the stats from this game. All that's coming up right here, right now. War Eagle Auburn family, and War Eagle especially to you, our E2C network family, those of you that consider being a part of this small, little intimate family within the Auburn family. And thank you so much for joining us, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching on the replay, whether you're here on home base of YouTube, Facebook, however you got here, whenever you got here. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, and spending some time being a part of our little family within the Auburn family. On today's stream, we have a reaction show for you. Auburn versus Mississippi State in the semifinals of the SEC tournament. The Tigers win 73-66 in a brawl, and I do mean brawl literally. We will talk about that and several other exciting ups, downs, slow starts, fast breaks, all the different discussions and storylines we've got to get into this one. I've still got to catch my breath from all this stuff. We've got a lot to discuss. You can start off the stream, especially if you're live. You can do this on the replay too. But if you're live, smash the like button for us. Do that, not just for us. Even if if you feel like we've earned it, smash it. But do it for your Auburn Tigers making it to the SEC title game. Smash the like button. And, of course, let us know you're here, where you're watching from, your city, your state, if you're international, all that good stuff. We want to know who's hanging out with us today to discuss and react to Auburn winning and heading to the SEC title game. I just felt like I went through a war, and I wasn't even out there on the court, much less even in the arena. I think to say that this game at times would have probably been better served as an actual NCAA wrestling match is probably a fair statement. Yes, it was a lot of fun to watch. Yes, it was very exciting, but there were some very interesting, frustrating on both sides moments, and the pace of play very much affected by the overusage at times of a whistle. This is one of those times where we can gripe a little bit about the refs. Thankfully, we're on the winning side of that gripe and not on the bad side, thus making it seem a little bit petty. It is part of the conversation that we need to have today, though. But the main focus is how the Tigers responded, yet again, getting off to a very slow start on offense, but never letting the distance between them and Mississippi State getting too far. So they were able to make a run back and get into position to not only win the game, but to compete throughout the game. In fact, evening it up at the half with a great shot at the end, going 31-31 at the half. The Tigers end up winning by a few thanks to making free throws at the end of the game. Throughout the game, a little bit frustrating. But my goodness, I don't even know where to begin. There's so many things that we need to talk about. Maybe we just go off of what you all want to discuss, and then we'll get into the individual stats, the team stats, and looking ahead to what's next. Everybody else, try to get your heart rate down while we do this. We got Brian, Devin, Thomas checking in. We got Bryant as well. Jackson's here. Good to see all of you fine folks hanging out with us, being here, part of the stream. Devin says that double technical was absolute garbage. So let me talk about it from a couple different angles here. And for those of you that didn't see it, let me try to paint the picture. Chad Baker-Mazar is a very emotional guy. He's also a very good actor. He's good at drawing fouls that maybe aren't necessarily there. It was there in this one. A little bit of over dramatics. I think this one was a double technical called. The situation, Chad was kind of trying to get position on a guy, moving his elbows around. You could have made a case his elbows were too high, but that's kind of petty at that point. He finally gives up the ball, and then the Mississippi State defender shoves him lightly once and then shoves him again once Chad did a little bit of acting. And then the thing that I have the biggest issue with is that the Mississippi State player went into our coaches and our bench. That right there should have gotten him tossed from the game. I don't understand necessarily why Chad got the foul, the technical foul, other than being an instigator and them knowing his reputation. That's the only thing that I can come up with. So yes, that double technical was garbage, but Chad kind of brings it on himself. It worked out in our favor, so we're not necessarily upset about it, but it's kind of one of those things. We talked about it last night in the stream. We've got to learn to keep those emotions in check. We're going to get ourselves in trouble sometimes. Thankfully, it didn't really amount to anything very much in this game. Kevin says, gritty game, free throws at the end. And, you know, as much as I harp on the free throws and lack thereof, it's felt like lately, and we'll look at the stats to see what it is in a second. You make them at the end of the game. You got to give the guys credit for knocking them down when it counted. Because let me just give some credit to Mississippi State. You saw, as much as I'm upset with them for their very rough, and rough is putting it lightly, way of playing. They are a very good basketball team, very talented basketball team. And you will see them probably make some noise in the NCAA tournament, especially the way they play if they don't have their guys foul out. Josh Hubbard, I think it's Josh Hubbard. I know I was worried the entire game he was going to get going. Thankfully, it didn't happen at the end. But if Auburn doesn't make their free throws the way Josh Hubbard was making shots, we were going to be in a world of hurt. So making your free throws at the end, combined with a gritty game on both sides, we did as well, makes for an exciting game. A very, very exciting game. Lots of people checking in. Good to see all of you here hanging out with us. Jackson points out, Simo, I love the Simo 3 at the beginning of the game. We tweeted this out, X'd it out, what do we call it? That we need to, as a fan base and collectively, really give credit to Chris Moore. This is a guy that was the starter at the beginning of the season, effectively lost his position, not just as a starter, but playing time was reduced to like 3 to 5 minutes, if that, of playing time once Lior started cooking. Lior gets hurt. Bruce puts out the call to him and says, you're about to get more time. We've got to have you get more aggressive offensively. You are not a liability in every other facet. Not liability is a strong word. You are so effective in every other aspect, but we got to have you be more effective, more aggressive offensively. And you have seen him do that. I'm not saying he's scoring double digits, if at all, ever. But what he's doing is being available and making those opportunities count when he's there, being very aggressive on the offensive end. So please, y'all, give Chris Moore the credit he's, especially those of y'all that were calling on him to get benched. You need to give the man credit because he is rising to the occasion when he is needed most. And that is what seniors do. Leaders do, upperclassmen do. Let's see here. Micah's here. Oh boy, folks. So for those of you who don't know, Micah is a Bama fan from TikTok. We do TikTok lives, and I've been getting on him to be over here. So behave, Micah. Yeah, Micah likes to stir the pot. He's all right though. Just don't let him get under your skin too much. But Micah, this is what real basketball looks like. I'm just saying. March Simo is greater than regular Simo. Hey, listen, it only matters how about you're playing at the end, right? State was a beast. Let's see what else you guys saying. AJ's here, one of our podcast co-hosts. Good to see you hanging out with us tonight. And a lot of people giving him credit. Oh man, folks. What else do we talked about the double technical Simo. Where we look at the stats in just a second, you're going to see mostly a very evenly spread out point in terms of the major scores spread game. This is one of those games that I would point to as an Auburn fan and say, hey, Auburn is greater than, how do I say this? The sum of Auburn's parts are greater than the parts themselves. I think they said on the broadcast today, Auburn doesn't have a quote unquote superstar. Janai is the closest thing to that, and most people don't consider him a superstar, but he is just there. But what happens when they're not having as great of games? You're going to see other guys step up. And if you look at the point spread today on all of the different scores for us, you're going to see very evenly killed. And guys taking advantage of opportunities when it counted most. Chris Moore, we've talked about. Dylan Cardwell at the end of the game. Almost said Devin Cardwell. Dylan Cardwell at the end of the game. Credit needs to be given to everybody for producing something that got out there on the floor. 44 great momentum turn when they tried to cut it to one. They did cut it to one. Like I said, Hubbard was just incredible at the end of the game and kind of made me very, 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 very upset at times and very concerned at time. I really thought State was going to win it, Micah says, just watching that Tennessee game. Their defense was ungodly against them, and I thought they'd come out against y'all, and they did. But the second half, Auburn got it going. Yeah, their defense wins championships. You might want to try that, Micah. But also, if you have a prolific scoring offense like Alabama does, that sometimes can overcompensate for that. Auburn's done that in their past. That's what the 2019 was kind of known for, is their offense outdid their defense, but their defense wasn't bad either. Either way, Mississippi State is a good basketball team, very rough basketball team, I would argue. Coach Jans needs to take an assessment of how much he lets his guys get overly aggressive, but it almost got them the win today. Hubbard is dangerous. I've said this a bunch. I'm scared of that kid. I am absolutely scared of that kid. All right, we're going to talk about some of the things for tomorrow in just a little bit, but you guys can talk about it in the chat if you'd like. We'll get to, at the end of the show, what's up next. Right now, let's talk about stats. Let me give you the rundown of what I'm seeing from the individual stats. What I want to know from everybody watching in the chat right now, your player of the game. One name. Don't write out a long response because I'm trying to do a quick tally in the chats, but I just want one name. You can give me your explanation in a separate comment just to make it easier for counting up. I want to see what the group thinks, who is the player of the game. This is one of those days where I don't think it's necessarily that easy. If you look at how everything's spread out here, Chad Baker-Mazara is your leading scorer with 14. Probably has the best case, 4 for 8 from the field, 1 for 2 from three-point land. Makes all but one of his 6 free throws, 4 rebounds. He does get a technical. He does get himself in some trouble with fouls with 4. So that has to be factored into. Denver Jones with 13 points for him. Jalen Williams with some very timely shots, 13 points. Janai Broome, only 10 and only 3 rebounds. So for everybody that says take out Janai Broome and Auburn's dead, I'm going to point you to this game right here. The sum of Auburn's parts is greater than the parts themselves, and that's why this is a good basketball team. Take that to the bank. All right, let's see what we got here. Jay Will, Chris Moore, Chad, Broome. We got a lot of CMOs today and CBM. So I think we've got a pretty even mixture here. I think CMO's in the lead. Are y'all doing that just because I went on a tirade about how much we need to respect CMO? I do think that Chad got in their heads a lot in this game and shouldn't have that technical foul called against him. And I think that really made a big factor in getting them in some foul trouble, getting us to the line. So to me, he's got to have some serious consideration. I'm going to say someone that I don't think a lot of you are bringing up right now. And he had a few mishandlings of the ball at the end. So it's going to take a little bit away from my point, but I'm going to give it to Denver Jones. For a while, he was our leading scorer. He was knocking down some shots that we really needed at times, a variety of shots. So I think, to me, I'm going to give it to Denver Jones. But my point stands that I said at the beginning of this. You could make a case for pretty much anybody. Simo, I love it. I think there's going to be some other options, but there you go. We got a Chad. Broome was calm in the storm on the floor. And there's something to be said for that. If you're not the statistical or the fan favorite for the game, being a veteran leader out there on the floor, not panicking, providing that stability, that availability to go to me if you want to. I think it speaks a lot to sometimes when you don't have those statistically great games, what you are providing. Chad drilled a 3 at the end. That might put him over the top. There you go. Baker-Mazara was good. I understand the toughness you have to have, but in a game, but at the same time, are you willing to sacrifice B-Maz sitting for that? B-Maz. Who is B-Maz? Chad Baker-Mazara? Is that what you're saying? I'm understanding there the typing a little bit, but I think I get what you're saying there. Jackson says the reason I say Jay Will is because of how clutch he came up towards the end there. Yes, he made some very good free throws. So what is a common theme that we've just talked about? Your star player, Janai, didn't have his best statistical game, but old reliable, calm in the storm. Jalen Williams, same thing. Pretty good game for him. Maybe not the best game we've seen him play, but available in the storm, calm in the storm, reliable. That's why Auburn's a good basketball team. All right. Let's look at the rest of the stats. We've got Aiden with 0. Katie Johnson with 4. He saw a lot less time today with 12. And he had the technical foul, the 3 fouls. So I wonder if Bruce told him after yesterday, if you get another one, you're going to sit for a little bit. So that may have been what happened there. Trey with 10. So we have five guys in double figures. Trey Donaldson was very instrumental at the beginning of the game when we were having a lack of scoring and able to knock down a 3, drives to the basket. Continue to say, I love how versatile he is. Chris Moore with 5, Cardwell with his 4 at the end. So Cardwell doing what he does best and providing when we need it most, right? Throat's getting a little dry from all the yelling I was doing down there. So that's your individual stats. Any other thoughts about individual players? I think we've covered the majority of it. So let's move on to team stats and talk about that a little bit. Let's see. Micah says, I was meaning Baker Mazzara, one more tech, and he would have been out, right? He would have been out for the game. I guess that doesn't affect you for the next game. But yes, you don't. I don't want him getting a technical ever. And if I'm coach, I'm saying, look, keep the emotion, but you got to find a way to stay out of trouble because they are looking to give you fouls. They're looking to call techs on you because they know that you have this reputation. So be very, very careful with this going forward. Latrell Jackson, we can't leave coaches out. Great way to get this team to come back and fight hard. Absolutely. Well said. Thank you, Latrell. We give obviously the credit to the players because they're out there on the floor, but the coaches got to get them prepared. Commentators talked all day about how great Bruce did in game 1 with his coaching, his play calling, his decision-making. I think his ability to channel the high stakes energy that was in this game and keep it mainly focused in the right direction is to be commended. So yes, they definitely need to get a heads up and a thank you for all that. All right, let's look at team stats. My goodness, I've been talking for a while about that. Team stats. It's a lot better than I thought it was. Auburn shoots 50% for the day. Mississippi State shoots 41%. So a lot better for Mississippi State in the first half, I bet. 3-point percentage got a lot better for Auburn, especially at the end, 32%. So you got to the average point. Mississippi State was making some at one point and then stopped. Only 3 for 15 today. Free throws percentage, I am happy to say now that I'm looking at it right now, is a lot better than I thought it was. And maybe because I was just so hyper focused on it all game and how close this game was, but 77% for Auburn is okay. 80% is the mark that is my standard. Who cares what my standard is? It's just what I hold it as. 63% for Mississippi State. So I will make the opposite argument that I normally make, well, actually it's the same argument. Missed free throws will lose games for you, especially in March Madness in tournament championship situations. So 63% for Mississippi State. They make a few more of those, we're in trouble. That might be the stat of the game right there on both sides of the equation. Turnovers got a lot better for Auburn. Auburn was giving up the ball a lot. They only lose that battle by 1. I think they had 5 turnovers yesterday and 15 today, so 10 more. Rebounds, that was pretty much the thing that kept Mississippi State ahead of us all game. Not just rebounds, but offensive rebounds. 17 for them, only 8 for us. Auburn does some work to get it back somewhat into respectable categories, 37-29, but it's still a big differential. So when you look at rebounds, that's the advantage of Mississippi State. When you look at free throws, it's the advantage of Auburn. And when you look at turnovers, it's negligible. The differential is much greater in free throws to rebounds. So there you go. That might be the big stat of the game. We'll run through a few more of those in just a second here. Yes, made them when we mattered most. And Bryant points out that we need to minimize those turnovers. I was very concerned with the mishandling and sloppiness at times, especially in the latter part of the game. Balls going off of knees, ankles, just loosey-goosey with it at times. That got a little bit scary. Turnovers like that will kill you. Thankfully, Auburn did a lot better in free throws than I thought, shot better as the game went on, and continued to play aggressively, which pushed them over that. Micah says not only that, but both teams knew the whistles were going to get tight after that, and they were getting pretty handsy sometimes. That's a thing That's a thing got to know. That last part there, I think your hands gave out on your typing there. Rest of the stats maybe to take note of from the team standpoint. Second chance points for Mississippi State is in favor of them, 12-5. Bench points, not a big difference, but Auburn gets the win there. Dead even in points in the paint. Very identical type of teams where they have good enough guard play. Maybe they have one that's exceptionally better, like a Josh Hubbard. And then strong big men like Janai Broom, Tolu Smith. Very similar stats right there kind of show you that. Blocks, 3 for Auburn, 3 for Mississippi State, 8 for Auburn. A lot of steals for Mississippi State, reflecting why the turnovers were so bad at one point. And then Auburn shared the ball a lot better, doubling up in assists, 7-15. So when you look at this, there's a lot of stats team-wise that show you that Auburn should have lost this game. But what was the difference? To me, it's the free throws. Auburn could have made it a lot worse than themselves if they hadn't made their free throws down the stretch. But if Mississippi State makes their free throws when they're only down by 1, 2, or 3 at the very end of the game, towards the end of the game, this is a much different scenario. We're probably a lot sadder. Defense wins championships. Kevin giving a key block to Jay Will at the end. Free throws, defense, taking care of the ball, limiting second chance opportunities. That's how you win a basketball game. It can be as simple as that, unless the team is just shooting the lights out of the ball, which is sometimes what seems to happen in a frustrating sense. So that is the storylines. That is the individual stats. That is the team stats. Is there anything that we have missed from this particular game that you guys would like? We've discussed the refs and the technical fouls. If there's anything that we haven't talked about from this particular game, drop it in right now. We'll hit it last before we move on and talk about what's coming up. And we don't know exactly what's coming up, except that Auburn's in the title game. So last minute comments, questions about this game, topics you want to hit that we haven't hit. Let me give you a reminder about a few things, and then we'll talk about what's coming up next for the Auburn Tigers, after we talk about what's coming up next for us. Folks, saddle up. This is going to be a busy week. I'm about to show you a lot of cue cards here for a lot of different things and live streams that we got going on. We will, thankfully, be doing a post-game stream tomorrow for the SEC title game. Who we will be playing, we don't know yet. We'll talk about that. How about this? You guys go ahead and in the chat, if you don't have topics about what the Mississippi State game left you want to talk about. Let's talk about who do you want, not who do you think, who do you want to play in the SEC title game. So there you go. Tomorrow, a post-game stream right after the game, so probably between 3 and 3:30, similar to today. Tomorrow night, the Auburn Experience, live. Don't miss it. Episode 70, we'll be talking about this and March Madness. So much to discuss there. If you love March Madness, Monday night, we are doing a long stream on YouTube. We're going to pick the whole bracket together. Join us. It's going to be fun. My goodness, folks, it's going to be a long stream, but I hope you guys can pop in at least for a little bit. And that'll be at 8 p.m. On Monday night. Tuesday night, after the baseball game, we were going to be talking about the Vanderbilt series, talking about the South Alabama game right after it ends, and then looking ahead to Arkansas. Wednesday night, we have got the Auburn Family Night call-in show. Don't miss it, 8 p.m. Eastern time there. Then we will have either a Thursday or a Friday post-game stream, win or lose, for one of the March Madness games that Auburn will be in. Whichever date comes first, we will talk about those. So that is what's coming up for us. Let's talk about what's coming up for the Auburn Tigers. I asked you guys, who do you want to play? We got votes for Florida. I got 3 for Florida, 2 for A&M that I'm seeing in here right now. Maybe a 4th Florida that I missed, maybe. So I think there's a lot to be desired about playing Florida. The storyline with Bruce's old assistant, Todd Golden, And that will be a very interesting thing to follow and for them to promote. That's probably what the SEC wants. There's this continued story of Texas A&M, either by their own fault or just because they get ignored, having to play super well in the SEC tournament under Buzz Williams over the last several years to earn respect. And one year they didn't get in the tournament. Another they did. This year they're fighting again. I think if they win and get into the finals, they will be in the tournament if they're not already. So to me, I think both of these teams now being probably in, even if Texas A&M doesn't win today, that won't be an extra bit of motivation. So it's really pick your poison. Who do you want? Who do you think Auburn's got a better shot against? Both teams are super physical. You had Texas A&M early in the year, and we handled them pretty well at home. Florida, which there's some kind of juju down in Gainesville we just can't overcome. That's not here. I think there'll be more Auburn fans than Florida or Texas A&M fans, so that shouldn't really be a factor. But yeah, I don't know who to go with in this one. I kind of am leaning Florida just because I like the Auburn ties there. Bruce playing one of his old coaches, that would be super cool. I don't know. What do you guys think? Ronnie says the young guards are growing up, and Denver is another scoring threat. He has become increasingly so over the last several games. And I'll say this too, if I remember correctly, I like Florida's guards a little bit more than Texas A&M. If we do play Florida, we're going to need guys like Denver Jones to continue to step up and provide better guard play. Didn't Florida whip our tails a few weeks ago? They did. It was at their place, though. And hopefully that won't be the case at a neutral site game. There's something going on down there. Justin says Florida owns us. No, that's not true. Florida does not own us. They own us in Gainesville. They do not own us overall. We have actually been having a lot more success. Well, more success as of late under Bruce than we have historically. But this is a different team, different coach, different scheme. I would still take Bruce and the boys the way they're playing over anything. Florida is Bruce Pearl's daddy. So this must be I don't know if this is an Auburn fan or not, Justin, but he's got a peacock next to his thing. So maybe he is an Auburn fan, but I don't think that they own us. I think that's a little bit of hyperbole. Chuck calls Auburn the band of brothers. They are playing like that. What makes the difference in Auburn versus a lot of other teams out there? Why do I continue to call them one of the best teams in the country? They play so well together. Band of brothers does bring that out in the way to describe it. The sum is greater than the parts. And that's why this is a good basketball team. We struggle against Florida, and I said it, Justin. I don't know if you heard me. We struggle at Florida, but not at home and not as of late. Look, we can go look at the numbers in a little bit, but I don't think that's going to play as much of a factor as you may think it is. What else? What else about the game coming up? Thoughts on who you want to play, who you don't want to play? Texas A&M, Florida. I know the game will be starting soon here if it hasn't started already. So I know a lot of you want to get on and watch that. So I don't want to belabor the point, but if there's something that we haven't addressed from this game, something we haven't addressed about what's upcoming for Auburn, don't miss your opportunity to get your comments and questions addressed here. What I will say is this, maybe as a final think through in this portion of the show, where has Auburn potentially helped itself in March Madness? Does this move them up into a number 3 seed? I don't know that it does. I haven't looked at all that enough to be super educated on it. I know they had themselves firmly entrenched at a 4 spot. I think if they win the SEC title, though, they've got to be considered a 3 seed. Anybody have any differing thoughts? Things like that? I just want to win. I don't really care who we beat to become champs. Well, that's hard to argue with that, Brian. Kevin says, did you see how CBM provoked and baited the Mississippi State player? We talked about that at the very beginning. He is a very good actor. And that's I've called Chad Baker-Mazara, and I don't mean it necessarily in this specific instance, but he's the first Auburn player in a while that I said I saw him and I see NBA style type of player written all over him. And to me, there's some good and bad that comes with it. Maybe it's his build more than anything else. He's big enough to not get super pushed around. He's small enough to not get run past and of that nature. I think Chad is a very unique style player, comes from a unique style of ball, and he's a force to be reckoned with in the SEC, and they weren't necessarily ready for him. Micah says they need to stop punching the camera in on players and coaches after physical plays, technicals. A few choice words were said that I saw. Oh, it happens. And listen, I don't know if you've played ball, Micah, but the stuff that you don't hear or don't see is sometimes worse. Yeah, that does happen from time to time. Devin's reminding people that are talking about Florida owning us 86 and 81 all time against Florida. I figured somebody would figure that out for us. CBM is a character. That's a nice way of saying that. If/when we win tomorrow, I think we're a 3 seed, possible 2. I don't know that our record and the metrics that everybody obsesses over is going to push us into a number 2 slot, but I think Auburn has made its case for a number 3 seed already. I think it could solidify that with a title win tomorrow. So not that we're just dismissing that, but in the same thought process, I just don't think we can get to a 2. I just hope that right now we've solidified ourselves as a 3. It would be much sweeter beating Florida. Yeah, with some recency events of trying to avenge the loss down in Florida, which was a reckoning day for a lot of Auburn fans. Do y'all remember all the panic that ensued over that game? And I tried to tell a lot of y'all here that were panicking, calm down. It's just one game. So yes, having revenge against Florida after what they did to us in Florida would be nice. You thought that would be a motivator for South Carolina yesterday. It just wasn't. Is Mississippi State going to make it in? Kevin, oh, sorry, that one's the wrong one. It came up quickly. Got a lot of comments and questions coming in at the end here. Is Mississippi State going to make it in? If they don't, I think we're getting a disservice to March Madness, frankly, because I think that they deserve to be in. Now, I don't like the way I just saw them play today, like in terms of the brawl nature that we just saw, but I got to give them credit. They've got some great players. Hubbard and Toulouse Smith are big household names in the SEC, and they showed up today. I think they deserve to be there. They took down Tennessee. That's a big thing right there. Took us to the wire. Arguably the 2 best teams in the top 3 of best SEC teams. I would put Tennessee, Auburn, and Kentucky in there together. They took them all to the wire. Kevin says, Florida is tough. They blew us out, but they were at home. Probably our worst loss, right? Well, some people will tell you that App State loss at the very beginning of the year was the worst loss, but that's just people who don't know basketball. It's not as bad as people make it out to be. Now, if you're talking about how we looked overall, where we thought we were at versus Florida versus App State, Florida would be the worst one just by that. All right, looks like the game is on. Let's get final thoughts, questions in here before we get out of here. Final things that you want me to hit, because I know y'all want to focus on the game. Justin said Duke falls back to a 4 if we beat a quality team like Florida tomorrow. So I think Justin and a lot of us agree that we have put ourselves in the conversation for a 3 today. Tomorrow, you beat Florida, rectify that. If Florida is the team you play, you're in a 3 spot. Checking in from South Dakota. Cool. Mississippi State is a lock, 9-10. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, and App State is a quad 1 loss. And it's always funny to me when people will scream quad wins, but then when they'll ignore it when it doesn't fit the narrative they want to talk about. And so you'd see the same people talking about, Auburn has no quad wins, but then they'll be like, that's a terrible loss. It was a quad 1 loss. So it's funny how people use things. Would that be our highest seed ever? I don't know that for a fact. I'm sure the SIDs have got those information bits churning out. Maybe some of you can figure that out, but I don't know necessarily. Latrell says Auburn will beat Florida by 10. I hope so. We got to have a good offensive day, though. All right. I know I said it once. Final thoughts, questions, derogatory rebuttals, like what he just posted. I told y'all Michael was going to stir stuff up in the comment section. Reminders, tomorrow, post-game stream. Do not miss it. Win or lose, be here. Let's talk about it because there'll be a lot of implications about the game, even in a loss, to talk about. So I hope you guys can join us right after the game tomorrow. Tell a friend, smash the like button. If you're interested in being part of our booster, I call it the Booster Club, old days, the Conquer Club, patreon.com/E2C Network is where you want to go. You can sign up for $1. It's the base that gets you in. Things like our Discord, recognition, all those type of things. And you can also do that by hitting the join button on YouTube down below. But even if you don't want to do those things, we appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, spending some time being a part of our little family within the Auburn family. Did we get a 2 seed a couple years ago? I'm not sure. We were 2 in the Chris Porter era. I thought that was it. Thank you, Justin. I thought that was it. Great offensive performance tomorrow. Definitely need that. And Brian kind of putting a bow on things for us. I said it for months. This team is fun to watch. Enjoy tomorrow. Enjoy the ride. So thank you guys so much for being here, hanging out with me, and talking about this awesome game. Auburn beats Mississippi State 73-66. And boy, oh boy, is it going to be fun watching the SEC title game tomorrow. Till then, folks, War Eagle.